A pretext is a purpose or a motive alleged or an appearance assumed in order to cloak the real intention or state of affairs.
Initial access. OMI is trying to get into your network.
Listen, this is your manager, and I'm trying to send off an email. I got this document. Need you to confirm a few details. So go ahead and log in and tell me what you think. I need this now, so to make this convenient, here is the link. I'm a threat actor, fishing mark for email is urgent to distract you with it. So how fast you clicked it when you submitted the form with your password in it. You probably couldn't tell there was an actual difference in the URL. The domains look alike though, and to you it looked fine though. Well, mine had typos and make it look like yours. See, I was in the mood today to make your account a communal space, but then you activated your trap card, and I saw you had 2FA, but I just shrugged. I'ma shake it off. Got on kid gloves, I'ma take them off. Got your phone number, I'ma make a call. I'ma break this wall, it just makes me lol. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking. Yeah. Hello. Hi. I'm calling you from the IT department. We have been under attack by some hackers, and we think that your account might be a target.
Oh no, how do I fix this?
No need to worry, I wrote up a ticket. You'll get a notification from your authenticator app, so please pass me them digits.
1 sec.
Okay.
Yeah. The code is 112345.
Thank you. You fell for the lie, so I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. Cutting it short like a crew cut. Probably think it won't happen to you, but it happened to Uber. They say you win some, you lose some. Boys got a smooth touch hacking you too, bruh. You know how I be creeping and I'm logging in your VPN. It probably looks anomalous. Some logs if you be keeping them. And probably unaware about the shares that have been peeping. And the reason I'll be seeking them, I'm looking for an easy win. You probably thought it was a magic trick, and you're mad you clicked. I'ma stack my chips and bet that a DA password is sitting in an admin script. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Generative AI in Azure. So my name is David, and I have with me here today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Kenny.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Kendi Klanko.
Yeah. So here we're on another session of hosting Generative AI in Azure, where we just have conversations on just generative AI use cases, especially surrounding Azure, but also just touching on like different areas of application. So last 2 weeks, we had an amazing session from Kenny, where she spoke about 10 use cases around like for generative AI or agents when it comes to data analysis. Very, very insightful session. So if you've not yet seen that session, I highly recommend that you go through it, because it sort of like brings like ideas in terms of like what I love about that presentation, Kenny, is the sort of like how you sort of like layered it in terms of like the level of application. So you don't have to like jump into the deep end into like the more complex things. We can start with like the more basic things in terms of layer. Just help me with some queries, right? Having an agent that can help us with certain queries, having an agent that can help us in terms of like data analysis, but then the application can also deepen, as we get more experience. So I really love that about that presentation and everything. Yeah. And I think that you have at some point also, Kenny, like maybe like in the next 2 weeks or maybe the one afterwards, I think you're planning a demo, right?
Yes,
Is there
I am.
any preview that you want to share with us about the demo, or you're cooking it and
Not
we'll
at the
see
moment.
when it's time? Okay, no
Yes.
problems at all. No problems. Okay, so before we get started, if you're yet to, I've put the link in the chat window of the meetup. So if you're yet to, please make sure that you join the meetup. So that's where you get notified of upcoming events that we have in the works. The other thing also, oh, by the way, I'm just trying to get my pen because I will need my pen. Okay, anyways, the other thing also is yeah. So also make sure that you like the video if you're watching the video. Make sure you like the video. Um, it's something that helps like boosts the rating of the video on YouTube. So, anyways, let's get started with today. So today, Kenny, what I'm thinking of doing is we're going to be introducing a different tool. So previously we've been talking about things like an AI Foundry, the different ways of implementing of or deploying generative AI in Azure, infrastructure as code, infrastructure as a service, sorry, um, platform as a service, which is Azure AI Foundry, software as a service, which is Microsoft Copilot, right? So we talked about like some of those, and then we started seeing like how we can use AI Foundry. So we talked about using AI Foundry with different tools, like using like AI Foundry, where the tools or some of the tools that it's using is hosted in Logic Apps, and then we saw where AI Foundry, where some of the tools that it's using is just making direct API calls. And if you used to remember, like Kenny, because I love having conversations with you, like the three key components of an AI agent. So
That's a
yeah,
model, tools, and instructions.
awesome. So we have an AI model, sorry, an AI agent has three key components, which are the three things that Kenny mentioned. So it has a model. So the model is what it uses for its planning. It uses that for some of its decision making. It also uses it for some of the processing that it does. But also it has let me bring up my screen very quickly. Share screen, and let's share the entire screen. Okay, so it has we have our agent, and our agent has a model, and it has tools. So we saw that in Azure AI Foundry, those tools can be diverse set of tools. So those tools could be knowledge. So we're bringing external knowledge or additional knowledge and making those available to the agent. Or where we can bring in actions. And the actions, we said, that can have different ranges to them. That can be calling actions that with deterministic actions in Logic Apps. That could be direct API calls. And Microsoft also have announced that they're supporting MCP. So that could be leveraging MCP. Do you remember what MCP is, Kenny, from our last previous conversation?
Model, something I can't
Well,
remember.
yeah, but in terms of like what the use case of MCP when it comes to agents. So I'll remind you, I definitely remind you and the audience. So just to recap, so we said that MCP is similar. Oh, by the way, let me readjust this. So we've got, yeah, that's a bit better. So we said that MCP um, we said that MCP is like a USB, right? If you remember that analogy, do you remember that analogy now a little bit, Kenny, where we talked about a USB, where we
Yes.
said like if you have your computer, you have all these different hardware devices, a scanner, a printer, a webcam. You have all these different hardware devices that you could plug in. It could be a 3D printer, right? I could plug into your computer. But all of them these days have a single interface that you use to plug them in, a USB interface. That is what MCP brings to the agent world. So you have all these services that you want to connect to your agent. Instead of you using like different methods, Logic App, API, this one, the other one, you can just standardize and use a standard protocol called MCP to plug in your tool to the agent. So that's where we have a standard way, regardless of whatever agents that you're using. As long as it supports MCP, you can plug it into the agent, and then the agent can make use of whatever actions that tool provides. So that's MCP. And the final one that you mentioned to us, Kenny, is instruction. So we have the different instructions that we can provide to this. So what I'm going to be showing us today is I'm going to bring in a new tool, but we're still going to integrate it with Azure. And that new tool is called N8N. So I won't go into like the full details of what N8N is, but just know that this is a very, very popular tool that we can use to define orchestrated workflows and agents. So it combines both workflows with agents. I'm not sure, Kenny, have you used like some of these workflow tools like Power Platform before? Like Power Platform or which one? Or even like Microsoft's Power Automate. Any of those tools before?
Mm, I've
Briefly.
briefly just
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we have like Copilot Studio, which is like the evolution of that. So
Yeah.
N8N, essentially what it does is it combines things like Power Platform, Power Automate capabilities together with the ability to create agents. So it brings everything together in one. But what I really love about N8N is its visual nature. So it helps us really make sense of what we've described so far, Kenny. It helps us see how an agent has all these components. So we can see how the model plugs in, how the tools plug in, how the instruction plugs in to create these N8N agents. So here's what we're going to do today. So let me show you very, very quickly. So it's going to be very much hands-on. But what we're going to be doing is it's a really ambitious project, so we'll see how far we go. But hopefully, I'll be able to get through it very quickly. So let me just go this, and I'll bring this up on the screen. So what I'm planning to do here, Kenny, is I want to create an agent, an AI agent, like the one that you're seeing on the screen, and that AI agent is going to be able to search a database that's hosted in Azure. It's also going to be able to update a database that's hosted in Azure so that I can have a chat interface. I can put in a message and say, hey, get me this information. And the agent will use the model to plan and say, oh, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And then it's going to, after it's done its plan, it's going to decide whether it's just going to do a search or whether it's going to do an update. And then based on that, it's going to do whatever it needs to do, and then it's going to return the results to me. So that's what I'm planning to do. So this is hosted in Azure. The database, the student DB is hosted in Azure. So let's see if we can get through this, Kenny. So the first thing I want to show you is setting up N8N. N8N has a cloud version. So you can set up like a cloud version. They will give you 14 days free trial. So what I've done here is I do have like a free trial, like cloud version. So you can go to, under their pricing, and you'll be able to get, personal cloud hosted, just free trial for 14 days, no credit card required. So that's one option. But they also have another option, which is you can do like a self-hosted option. So this is another thing that makes N8N powerful is I don't need to have anything running in the cloud. I can just download it and run it locally on my system. And that is what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is there are three things that I need if I want to run N8N locally on my system. Number one, I need to make sure that I have Node installed. So I need to make sure that I have Node installed. You know what Node is, Kenny?
I know what it does, but
yeah. So just to help you and the audience in terms of like what Node is. So Node is like a programming language. It's like Java, right, or Python. It's exactly a programming language. So npm is the package manager for Node. So if you want to release packages for Node, you use npm. So it's called Node Package Manager. That's what npm stands for. So the main thing, what I'm doing is I'm just checking that Node is installed on my system and npm is installed on my system. If you're not sure how to install it, it's very easy. You can just Google, install Node, install npm, and it will give you the instructions. So I've already pre-installed it to make the process quicker. So I have this tool installed already on my system. So the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to run N8N on my system. And it's a simple command I'm going to use. Just that one command. Once I have Node and I have npm installed, I can just go ahead and run npx N8N. And what it's going to do is that it's going to download the N8N package and it's going to run it locally on my PC. So you can see it's not complicated, right? So you can see it's already starting it up. That's it. Anytime is now running on my PC. There you go. So you see like this URL that you gave me. I can copy that URL, which is a local URL. I can go to my system. I can paste that. And there you go. You can see that it's brought me in here. So if this is your first time of using it, you have to sign in, right? It will ask you to sign in. So you just need to use your account, sign into it, and then you have a visual flow that looks like this one. So that's the first thing. I need N8N, number one thing. So let's go what we're doing, install N8N, which I've showed you how to do that. So install N8N. So once I've installed N8N, the next thing that I want to show you is I want to show you this database in Azure. So you can see what that looks like. So database, if I go to my Azure environment, I have a storage account in Azure, which I believe is this one. Let me just quickly check that I have the right one. Yeah, that's the one. This is my storage account in Azure. And inside this storage account, I have a database. If I go to under data storage, if I go to under tables, I have a student DB database here. And if I want to see the content of that, I can go to under storage browser. And under storage browser, I can go to under tables and you can see the database there. And you can see the data that exists. So this is like a student database. It contains information about the courses that the students are studying, biology, business administration, computer science, different information about their student's number, information about their first name, their last name, their major, their enrollment year, their current GPA, the last time that they were reviewed by their student advisor, who is their student advisor. So it just contains like just basic information that you find in a typical database. So that's there. So that's the database that we want to build an agent that will be able to interact with this database. So now that we've seen that, let's go back to N8N and let's start. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, let's go build this, is I need to provide information about the models, the model that I'm going to be using for this. Now, in my own case, what I have is I've got OpenAI, and I'm going to be using the models provided by OpenAI is what I'm going to be using. If you have Azure, you can use Azure OpenAI also. So I know like you have access to an Azure subscription, Kenny, so you can just use Azure OpenAI, which will provide you with a key that you can use. So let's go over to N8N and let's go to do that. So what I can do is here I'm logged into this. If I go to under credentials, I can go add different credentials to N8N. So if I go to an existing one, I can just go to modify an existing one, which is what I'll do. But if I want to, I can just go over here. I can go to create credential, and you see the different credentials I can add. I can add credentials to connect to different APIs, including credential to connect to OpenAI. So you can see Azure OpenAI. You can see OpenAI here. You can see other like APIs that are supported. So in this case, what I have is I'll just go edit this existing one. I have my API key for OpenAI. So Kenny, in case you're doing this later, in Azure OpenAI, you just need to create an Azure OpenAI instance, retrieve your key, and just put your key in here. So just put your key in here. So I've put my key in there, and it's going to ask you for the base URL. You put the base URL, and then you can save that. And you can see it says connection successful. So now what I've done is I've provided a key that my agent can use to connect to the model. So that's what I've done here. So I just provided the key to connect to the model. The other thing that I also need to provide is I also need to provide it with a key that you can use to connect to my database. Again, depending on whatever database that you're using, Kenny, if we go over here, you see like multiple databases here. There are multiple databases, MongoDB, like us kind of databases. So SQL databases exist. So there are different kinds of databases that exist that you can connect anything to. So in this case, I want to connect with the database in Azure Storage. So what I'll do is I already have my SAS token. So again, I'll just open this. And what I'll do is I'll modify this. I'll modify this. I'll put in the SAS token for my database. The other thing that I'll also do is I'll make sure that I have the correct name for my storage account, which is this name, is the name for my storage account. So I'll copy that and I'll put that in here. And let's save that. And let's close that. So now I've got like the two connections. So I've given it the key to connect to the model, the key to connect to the database. So now let's go start building our agent. So to create our agent in N10, I can go here and I can go to create a workflow. And you can see how easy this is to use, Kenny, right? It's different from Azure AI Foundry, right?
Yeah.
This is like very visual.
Yes.
It's like, what's the first step? What do you want to do? If I click on that option, you can see that it's giving me multiple options. Say, do you want to start it manually? Do you want to start it on a schedule? Do you want to start it on a webhook call? The one that I want is I want to interact with it using chat. So I'll pick the option on chat message. So if I go to select that option on chat message, and by the way, I'll expand this a little bit so it's more visible. So I pick the option to say on chat message is when I want to start this. So here, let's go to this. It says, what do I want to do with the chat? I'll say make the chat publicly available. So it's running on my system, so that's fine. So you can see that it's giving me like a URL to get to that chat, but I can also use the chat here. What's the mode? I'll leave that as posted chat. Authentication, you can, in case you want to put an authentication behind the chat so that not just anyone can go get to the chat, right? You want to put like basic authentication or user authentication, you can do that. But in this case, it's running locally on my system, so I'll just leave it as none. And so what's the initial message? I'll just say hello. What I'll do is I'll just put a message here. So here is the message that I'll put here. I'll say, hello, I'm a student advisor, AI assistant. How can I assist you today? So that's will be the initial message of the agent when I connect. And once I've done that, I'll leave other things as they are. And if I go to test the chat. So now you can see that we have our first option for our agent, which is the chat. So, and I can go to like test this out. If I want to test this out, I can go put like certain information here and just say, hello. And it says, hey, I've executed successfully, but you can see it's not giving me any response, right? Do you know the reason why it's not giving me any response?
No.
Because look at it, I just have a chat interface. Is it connected to any model? No.
No, it's not
So
connected.
it's just standing alone. So that's the reason why it's like, okay, I can process your message, but I don't have anywhere to send it. It's just hanging there. Okay. So now the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to give it a model so that it has a model that can do some processing. So let's go do that. So if I go to add an option here, so I click on that to add an option, and look at all these options that I can add, Kenny. I can add an AI model to it. I can add different actions in different applications if I've connected them via API. I can even do data transformation, implement flows. So you can see we can go like more complex. But here we just want to do something basic. So I'll just say I want to add an AI model to this. And for the AI model, if I go to under AI agents, so let's select AI agents. And under the AI agent, let's go make some changes. So I'm going to add an AI agent to it. And let's see, should I make any changes here? So I'm just going to leave all of this at the default settings. And I'm just going to close this. So now you can see that we're building our agent little by little. So now we have a chat that's connected to an AI agent, but the AI agent doesn't have any model, it doesn't have any memory, it doesn't have any tool. So what we'll start doing is we start adding some model to it. So I'll go add a model. I can add an Azure OpenAI. So in this case, I'll just add my OpenAI chat model. I'll select that. It says, what credential do you want to use to connect to the model? I'll select the credential that I added earlier. That's the credential. And it's going to ask me for what models do I want to use. So if I go to the models, you can see that it has a list of the different models I can use. So there's a lot of models here, right? We have the GPT-4 models. You have the recent GPT-5 models. I can select whichever one I want to use. In this case, I'll just select the GPT-4o model. So I'll select the model, and I'll just go ahead and I'll just close that. So now look at what we have here, Kenny. We have the chat plugged into an AI agent, the AI agent plugged into a model. So let's go test this out and let's see what will happen. So I'm going to reset the chat session, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to say hello. And when I enter that, can you see what's going on there, Kenny? So the chat has now gone to the AI agent, and the AI agent sent it to the model, and then the model has replied me, hello, how can I assist you today? What do you think about this, like, Kenny, in terms of like the visual nature of this? Because it's showing you how your data is moving. It's like, I mean, I can go.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Like even a beginner is able to like see the visual representation of like how each step is going.
Exactly. And that's what I love about it. Because look at this. If I go to, I'm doing well, thanks, and you, and I send that, it tells me that's gone to the agent has sent that to the model has replied, and I've got a response back from the model. So things are looking good. But there's a downside to what I currently have. So I have a model, but I don't have a memory. What's the significance of that? Here's the significance of that. So if I say, my name is David, remember this, and press enter. The model is going to reply and says, hello, David. While I can remember this during our current conversation, please keep in mind I'm unable to retain personal information like names between interactions. So if I go back and say, what is my name? Look at that. It says, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I just told you my name. My name is David, and you greeted me and you said, hello, David. But now you don't remember my name. You know the reason for that? Can you guess the reason for that? I'm pointing to it.
I'll say no
I'm
knowledge
pointing to it
base
right now. There's no memory.
memory.
So this helps you to know why memory is important when you're talking about AI agents. Because sometimes when you're working in Azure AI Foundry, it allows you to add memory. Maybe you can add a memory based in Azure AI Search or maybe a database. You're like, why do I need to add this memory? It's because that's where it's going to store the interaction that you're having with the agent. So it's going to store the interaction that you're having with the agent so that it can remember that. So that's why the memory is important. So in this case, what I need to do is I need to add a memory to it. So I'll just click on the plus, and it says, hey, do you want to add a simple memory, or do you want to put your memory in an external database like MongoDB, PostgreSQL, Redis Chat? Where do you want to put the memory? I'll keep it simple in this case. I'm just going to use the Windows memory. So I'm just going to say, use the memory of my computer. I'm not going to modify anything. I'm just going to close that. And now I've added a memory to my agent. And now let's reset the session and let's test it out again. Hello. Now you see that the first thing that I did was it saved that in the memory, and then it sent that to the model. And now the model says, hello, how can I assist you today? If I say, my name is David, remember this. You can see that it's updated the memory, and then it says, hello, David, I can remember blah, blah, blah. And then if I go, what is my name? You can see now it has my name now. It says, your name is David. How can I assist you for that? That's the power of adding a memory to your agent. But that's not what we're after, right, Kenny? We're not just after chatting with the model. We can go to ChatGPT for that. What we're after is we want to build an agent that can interact with a database in Azure. So let's go do that connection. So our agent is getting there little by little. We just need to go connect it to our database in Azure so we can start interacting with it. And that's the next thing that I'm going to do. So the next thing that I'm going to do, by the way, if I go back to my memory, so you see here, so this one is also very important setting when you're doing memory. It says context length window. In other words, what's the amount of conversations do you want me to remember? I'll just set this one to 50 so that it has more remembrance of the conversation. So I'll set that to 50. Okay, so let's go add our Azure database. So let's go add our first tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add first tool. And can you see one of the options that we have here, Kenny?
MCP.
So what is MCP for, Kenny, in the agent world?
I think a standard protocol.
A standard protocol for what?
To plug in, I don't know, the tools.
Exactly. It's a standard protocol that AI agents can use to communicate with any external tool.
Yeah.
So that now it's like a USB. So now we have a standard interface. So now, I can go plug into all of these. You can see all these different options that it supports. But will it not be great if I just need to do everything using a single process? I mean, imagine Kenny, you have all this hardware that you can plug into your computer, but you have to use separate interfaces for all of them. How many interfaces will your computer need? Yeah, if you want to do that. But now it's just a single USB, so it's the same standard regardless of the hardware. So that's the power of MCP. So we'll come back in our study series, the ones that I'll be doing, we'll come back, we'll have a session where we'll focus on MCP. So, but for now, just know what MCP is about. So let's go further. So what I want to do is I want to connect it with a database in Azure. Now, over here, I can search for Azure. And I can't see anything that it's pointing out. So I can see that it's got a lot of different stuff, but not really a lot of things for Azure. But that's not the end of everything, because guess what? It supports direct API connections. A lot of Azure services have exposed their APIs. So what I can do is I can use an HTTP request tool, which is standard API, to make that connection to my database in Azure. So which is what I'm going to be doing in this case. So let's go to add, make an HTTP request, and I'm going to use that to connect to this. So the first thing that it's asking me says, give me a description for this tool that you want to add. And here is the description that I'm going to add to this. So I'm going to add this description, and the description I'm adding says, you can use this tool to search the student database table in Azure Storage. The entities have the following properties. So it has a partition key, it has a row key. So I'm just giving it information about what's in the database using natural language. This is very significant, Kenny. See, when we are dealing with agents, we have to think about it like we're dealing with a human being, right? So, okay, for example, some people may not know, but Kenny she's a twin. she has a twin sister. So imagine you and your sister, you're like, oh, let's go out, let's go get something to eat. And you say to your sister, like, oh, I'm hungry. And you say to your sister, or your sister says to you, let's go get, let's say some jollof rice. So you're like, yeah, I had jollof rice yesterday. And then your sister is like, okay, let's go get some meat pie. You're like, yeah, I ate meat pie 2 days ago. Your sister is like, hey, Ken, if I'm going to be able to help you, if I'm going to be able to help you, you need to give me more context. Because the more I know, the more easily I can help you to know what I can recommend in terms of where we can go to eat. It's the same way, because here we're not using code. We're using natural human language to control these agents. So the more information that we give to them, the more they can help us. If I just say, this can search a student table in Azure storage, and that's all. It's like, okay, should I assume that it contains their phone number? It contains everything? Because it's just going to assume if we don't give it that information. So the more information we give to it, the more the model will be able to make intelligent decisions. So now the model knows, if I'm interacting with this table, these are the different properties that it has. Anything, so if somebody comes, I need a phone number, it can tell, oh, there's no phone number here, so this is probably not the right tool to use. I need to go use another tool if I need to get a phone number, because according to the context provided to me, this doesn't contain phone number. So that's the power of this. Anyways, I'm just going to put my description. And after putting my description, this is going to use a get method. So I'm going to put in a URL to use. So in this URL, I have the URL for my database, which also includes the key. So I'm just going to put in the URL here for my database. Authentication, I'm going to set that to none. The reason why I'm setting that to none is because the authentication is already included in the URL. So, but if you have like other types of authentication, you can use that. But in this case, I'll set that to none. In this case, I'm also going to provide some guidance to it, right? I'm going to provide some guidance to the model. So for example, I'm going to provide some guidance around how to query this database. So that in case it doesn't know, I'll give it some examples. So I'm like, okay, if you want to query this database, for example, let's say field, let's see. So let's say field equals to, if you want to filter for information in this database, an example of how you do that is you can do something like this. Okay, it says invalid syntax. So let me just check and make sure that I've got the right thing. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's do this. Here's one good thing about this, Kenny. So I don't need to figure this out, by the way. So here I've put in like a filter. You see this icon in front here? That icon says, let the model define the parameter. So I can click on that and say, model can try to define this for me, right? So I can do that and the model will try to define that for me. I'm just going to add another parameter. And I'm going to say this another parameter that you can use when you're querying the database. So top. And I'm just going to let actually, let's see. Let me switch this to expression. Okay, you know what? Let me switch this to expression. Let me see something very quickly, just to test something out. So that's still invalid. So I'm just going to change that. And I'm going to leave that. Actually, let's do this. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just going to add one more parameter, so which is a select parameter. And by the way, Kenny, what I'm going to be doing after this is that the instructions that I created for this, I have it on my blog. So I'll be publishing that blog post immediately after our session today. So I'll be doing that. So in this case, I've specified different values. So let's see, we've got filter. We have, let me just check. So let's see. Okay, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. And let's do that. So I'm just going to modify this a little bit. So apologies here. I just need to make sure that I give it the right examples. So filter condition. and string. Okay, that's good. So the next one is this value, and I have an example here for top. So let's go modify that. Um, hmm, not sure why it does not like that. Anyways, you know what? Let's do this. Let's just let the model define it. Let's trust the model. Let's see. Let's trust the model a little bit. So I'll just let the model define like the others. I'll see if it does not work. I'll give you the examples after that. So the other thing that I'm going to add is because it's going to need to add like a header, an HTTP header when it's connecting to that. So I'll also give it information about the header to add. So for example, it's going to need to add these values when it's making an API call to my database. So I'll add the value. So it's using old data. So I'm going to add the value there. And I'm going to add another parameter for the header. So for the header, it also needs to add the XMS version. And the value for the XMS version is this. So give it certain information that it needs to add when it's making use of that API. So that's done. So I've done this. So let's go to test this out a little bit. So let's go to close this. And what I can also do is I can also rename this. I can right click on it and click on rename it. So now rename it, I'll call it search students DB. So I'll give it a different name. And once I've added that, let's go to test this out. And let's see how it's going to behave very quickly. So before I go further to start adding any additional thing, I'm just going to do like the test and see how it behaves. So let's go ahead and save my workflow for my agents. So let's go to the hello. And now it's giving me a response. Hello there. How can I assist you today? Okay. Let's get some information in our database. So there is a student called, let's check the student's name, Havani Suzuki. Okay, so let's go ask it some question about Havani Suzuki. So let's go back to our agent. Who is Havani Suzuki's student advisor? So let's see. Oh, you can see that it tried to call the database, but then there's some failure that it experienced, right? So, and that's again one of the powerful things about N8N is you can see exactly what failed, right? So it's like, oh, I tried to like use your database to make some requests, but I experienced like some issues. So I'm guessing that the issue that it experienced has to do with it's not really able to define how to call the database. So let's make a little bit of changes to this one, Ken. So let's see if we can change this. So let's go to change this. And I'll add this very, very quickly. So let's go to this one and let's add that. Okay, let's do that. And let's add another one. So for this one, let's say I'm going to define that myself. So fixed. And I'm going to define this one also. I'll change that to fixed. And I'll set an example of how to use this. So if it needs to filter for data in the database, this is the example of how to do it. Is what I'm telling it. If it needs to get like the top values, this is an example of how to do it. If it needs to select certain information in the database, this is an example of how to do it. So that's what I'm giving to it here. So let's go to close this and let's save it. And let's try again. So let's clear. Restart the session. So let's go hello. And it replied me. So let's go. Who is Pavani Suzuki's student advisor? And let's see if it's successful this time around. Oh no, it's not successful again. So again, like one of the things that I like about it is it gives me detailed information about where to look in terms of what went wrong. So in this case, I can see what it's trying to do. It's trying to use filter condition. First name equals to Pavani, last name equals to Suzuki, and okay, properties to select, student advisor, record limit equals to 1. So that's what it's doing in the input. I can also go check out the JSON, by the way. I can click on that and it gives me the JSON. So filter condition equals to that. So let's see. So, okay, I'm conscious of the time here. So I'm going to try to go check out like my environment again. So I'm just going to check that out, see if I've missed something. So let's see again, anything that I've missed. Let's see. So we've got our URL correct. We've got our method, which is using the get method to the URL. That's fine. And everything else. So everything looks good to me, but obviously something is not right in terms of the example that I've given it. So let's see. Let's see. What mistakes have I done here? So let's see. Specify query parameters using the fields below. And let's see, invalid. So fixed the top one. So this looks okay to me, and I'm beginning to be concerned whether my authentication is wrong. So maybe what I'll do is I'll come back to this one to see like what I am doing wrong here. So because this looks okay to me, but something is obviously wrong in terms of how it's querying that. But what do you think about anything so far, Kenny? What's your thoughts around it?
I think it's a little straightforward than Azure AI Foundry.
Is it because of the visual nature? But I also like the fact
Yes,
that yeah,
yes,
it also like makes it very easy, right, to know, say like how things are actually connecting to each other. So I'll just mention
yes,
one. Here's one other thing that I also like about this. So you see here, I'm trying to plug in my first two, which I'll find what the problem is and I'll fix it, and maybe next time I'll come back to this one. But you can see here that I've got like many things I can add. I like this. I can also add a human in the loop, right? So this is also another very interesting option to be able to add a human in the loop. But another thing that I can also add, which I love, is I can actually chain multiple workflows together. So if I go back to this, I can actually add multiple workflows. So that way, what I can have is I can have this workflow, and then this workflow is calling another workflow as part of its process. So let me close this. Let me bring that up again. So add another, no, not another trigger. And the other thing I also like is that you can add more than one trigger. So for example, you can add a trigger of like when chat is received. Another option that I really love is, for example, if I want to go add another trigger, you can, for example, connect it to like WhatsApp, for example, right? You can connect it to like WhatsApp. So when a WhatsApp message is received, it's going to run this workflow in response to certain actions. So to do that, you just need a webhook for that, and then you need to plug in like your WhatsApp into that webhook. You can connect it to like Telegram or other types of channels, or Teams channel, or Slack, or any other types of channel like out there. So, okay, in the interest of time, we'll pause there. So what I'll do is I'll figure out like what the issue is, but I have like a blog post on this that I wrote. So which is the blog post here, and it's on my Medium page, davidokeorio.medium.com. So what I'll do is I'll release this after this session. So what this blog post does is it shows you how to, so for example, it even gives you the script that you need to set up the sample data. So, the Azure storage that I'm using, if you want to set that up in your own Azure environment to test things out, I provide the script that you can use to essentially set up a sample database. And it's going to import all the necessary data. And then you can use this to essentially test out anything. So it goes into everything step by step. So I'll release this afterwards. Any final words from you, Kenny? Any final words or thoughts?
No.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick things up from there in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, we'll carry on with the conversation around NA10. We'll see a few more things around NA10 before we go back to Azure AI Foundry. And then after that, maybe we'll have a session where Kenny shows us like a little bit of demo. But for now, thanks for joining us, and see you next time. Have a lovely rest of the day. Have a lovely rest of the evening. So bye for now, everyone.
All right.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.